What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to quickly talk about a really solid team that you can use in both Premier Cup and Master League and have a really good amount of success with. Now, Go Back League is going to be switching over to Premier Cup and Master League in no time from Ultra League. So I know I'm slightly late in making this video, but I wanted to put it out anyways because this is a team that I had a really good amount of success with towards the latter part of Season 1. So I'm just going to be playing some battles. These are, again, like I said, some battles from Season 1 on the side, but predominantly I'm just going to be talking about, the 5 important aspects as to why this team is really solid as far as Go Back League, Master League and Premier Cup is concerned. So if you're basically if you're still struggling to find a team, or if you're still confused as to what Pokemon to use as far as Premier Cup and Master League is concerned, I would highly recommend trying this team out. This is a tried and tested team, and the most important part of it, first important aspect of it which I want to talk about, is basically it's built on the Dragon, Steel, Water / Mud Boy strategy. Now what this means is basically if you look at any solid Go Back League team across any league, right? You take Great League, Ultra League, Master League. This is a team comp that basically stands through the test of time and can perform really well irrespective of any shifts in the meta. It's a team comp that's extremely reliable. If you look at, for example, I'll give you examples now. In Great League, you have something like Altaria, Registeel and Azumarill, right? Irrespective of what Pokemon comes to the Great League meta, this is a team comp that's going to just stay no matter what. It's a team comp that's absolutely solid because, and of course in Ultra League you have Giratina, Altered, Swampert and Registeel, and similarly again in Master League you can have Dragonite, Metagross and Swampert. Also if you're using legendaries, you can have Giratina, Melmetal, Swampert. So basically I think this team comp, it's just so solid, which kind of moving into the second aspect as to why it is so strong is because of the overall coverage. There are basically no common weaknesses in this team, right? You can basically, there's any Pokemon, you will have at least one if not two solid answers to, and that's the most important and most sort of reliable aspect about this team is the fact that it has such great coverage overall. And if you're leading with a Dragon type and then having a Steel type in the back, that's an absolutely golden combination because Steel covers for all of Dragon's weaknesses, and Dragonite, because of its Dragon flying typing, basically covers for all of Metagross's Steel type weaknesses. It basically resists fighting, fire, and then fairy moves as well, which is really useful. So you put Dragonite and Metagross together, or any Dragon and Steel together, it's always a solid combination. And then just to tag along to this team core, which is the third aspect which I'm going to be talking about, is you need a really solid closer, right? And that's what Swampert is so good. Now Swampert is an absolutely underrated gem when it comes to Master League. A lot of people underrated, a lot of people like to use Kyogre as a water type option, or if you want a ground type options, a lot of people use something like Rhyperior, Mamoswine, Garchomp, etc. But the reason why Swampert stands out is because of its non-existent weakness as far as Master League and Premier Cup is concerned. You're almost never going to see grass types as far as Master League is concerned. You might see the odd Virizion, which is, in my opinion, probably the only viable grass type in Master League because it's also part fighting, which can provide coverage against the Steel types. But how often do you run into Virizions, right? You might run into it like maybe 1 out of 20 times. And then in Premier Cup as well, you might see occasionally the Venusaurs. Maybe if Swampert's menace if Swampert becomes too menacing, you might see people use Venusaur. But then again, it's not something that's exactly very common as far as the meta is concerned, which is why I think it's a very reliable pick. You're never going to have any hard counters to Swampert. In fact, the hardest counter to Swampert as far as Master League or Premier Cup is concerned would be something like Dragonite and Metagross, which will resist both the water and ground moves. But even then, overall, Swampert has basically got such positive matchups against a lot of the Pokemon that you're going to see in the meta. Even though its CP cap is only 2974, I believe, at level 40, which is well below, some of the other, maxed out monsters like Kyogre, etc., which max out over 4000 CP, and that definitely is a factor in terms of Swampert's bulk. It's slightly squishy in Master League, but overall the coverage it provides can definitely, and combined with its energy generation, can more than make up for it. Now, other thing that I wanted to obviously talk about is basically the coverage that this team has against the meta. Now let's just take a look at Master League, for example, right? For Master League, you have, again, let's take a look at some of the top Pokemon in the Master League meta. You have Giratina Origin. Dragonite can handle the Giratina Origin because the Dragon type moves would do super effective damage against Giratina Origin. You take a look at Metagross and any other Steel types, Swampert is going to be able to match up. Swampert can pretty much one-shot any of the Steel types, and then of course Metagross can handle something like Togekiss and other Charmers and even opposing Dragonites as well. Now, of course, Dragonite can also handle something like Kyogres, Swamperts, and any other starter maybe the odd Blaziken, etc., which even Swampert can handle. And moving into the fourth aspect of it, which is the long list of Pokemon which this Swampert can handle. Now, because you have so many different Pokemon that are being added to the Master League meta, you have something like Fire Punch Groudon, for example. You'll see a lot more Groudons in Master League. You'll see a lot more Reshiram and Zekrom, which have recently been introduced to Pokemon Go. And Swampert, I mean, this just adds to the long list of Pokemon that Swampert can one-shot, right? Swampert can do super effective damage against Metagross, Dialga. It can one-shot a Dialga. It can do super effective damage against Melmetal, Groudon, then Zekrom, Reshiram, Heatran, Tyranitar, Rhyperior, Mamoswine. I mean, just look at the Magnezone as well, which is going to be very prominent in Ultra League. Swampert can basically dominate so... I mean, it has such an overwhelming domination, especially towards endgame, when you can save shields for it, to pretty much take out multiple Pokemon, especially because of its energy generation. And that's why it's just such a solid team comp. When it comes to closing out games, you've got that basis covered as well. And then moving into the final aspect of it is the affordability, right? I mean, look, if you want to run a triple legendary team, like let's say if you want to run a team consisting of Melmetal, Dialga, and Giratina Origin, right? First of all, if you're a free-to-play player, and if you don't invest too much money in the game, then you probably would not have invested a lot in premium raid passes, which means that, you know, when these Pokemon like Giratina Origin, Dialga, etc., they're so rare, right? I mean, when is the last time we saw them in raids? Probably about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. And even then, even when it's out, it's only out for about 2 weeks, which means that if you want to get enough candy to basically power it up all the way and then unlock the second move on it, you have to do at least 100 raids. Like, let's be honest, you have to get like 400 candies for it, which means that you might have to do 100 raids for it, which would be about 5 or 6 raids per day. And there are two major constraints, right? One, you may not be in a locality where there's an active raiding group that you can sort of travel around. You may not have or you might not be available at the time to do multiple raids in a given day. And then more importantly, like I said, if you're not willing to invest in multiple premium passes, if you're just using your free raid pass, you can basically just do one raid per day. And that's, even if you do one raid every single day, and you manage to catch every single one of those, and then even pine-up them, you're just going to end up with what, maybe close to 100 candy. That's about it, right? You still need 400 candies for it. And also these legendaries, the catch rate is very hard. Like, a lot of times you might not even be able to catch these legendaries. And on top of the fact that sometimes you need even the 100% IV ones for Master League, right? Which means that you have to do so many raids to basically get that 100% IV. The chances of getting it in like just 5 or 6 raids are very low. So I mean, from all these points of view, there's a lot of restrictions when it comes to using teams with with maxed out legendaries, right? To be honest with you, I haven't even dexed a Giratina Origin or a Dialga yet, but having said that, just because you don't have legendaries doesn't mean you can't compete in Master League or Premier Cup. Now, this is a very solid team comp that can basically perform equally as well as any Master League team would. And then, of course, in Premier Cup, you don't have to worry about it. There are no legendaries. It's all basically just normal, non-legendary, non-mythical Pokemon, which everybody can afford. And these are just community day Pokemon. All 3 of these are community day Pokemon, which you're very likely to have a lot of candies and probably even have good IV ones for. Obviously, with Meta, you don't need the community day move on Dragonite, but you definitely need the community day moves of Meteor Mash and Hydro Cannon on Metagross and Swampert. Now, Dragonite, you could just basically run even with a single charge move like I did in Season 1. I'll probably add a second charge move of Hurricane. Now, Hurricane is only needed for the Togekiss matchup, but for everything else, Dragon Claw should suffice. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Hopefully, I didn't sort of talk about too many things and confuse. I mean, I hope that, whatever I mentioned was pretty clear. Apologies if, I didn't get my points across clearly. But anyways, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about in terms of how solid this team is. And if you're sort of still kind of confused or on the fence about what team you should use, because there are so many good Pokemon to use, right? You might have the temptation to keep switching it out. But as far as Master League and Premier Cup is concerned, there's very little room to experiment. And if you want to really have a consistent team that you want to gain a reasonable amount of points with, this is a team that I would highly recommend. And I'm really looking forward to using. Obviously, I can't sort of 100% guarantee how it would perform unless I actually try it out myself as far as Premier Cup is concerned. But like I said, I mean, I see great potential for it. And because it's such a reliable, solid team comp with great coverage and protection against there are no common weaknesses, and then they kind of protect each other's strengths and weaknesses perfectly. I see great play for it. But anyways, I guess that's it for the first part of it, but we'll just get into a little bit of commentary as far as, I'm pretty sure you might have followed battle, so we'll just get into a little bit of commentary and see how we go. Okay, let's just get into some commentary for some of these battles. And yeah, Dragonite on the lead with Metagross and then Swampert in the back. Let's just see how it goes. So we have Dragonite into Dialga. This is not a great matchup. So typically what I do in these situations is safe switch into Metagross. So hopefully I can line it up with Swampert towards endgame. But they switch into Machamp. This is not a good matchup for Metagross. But because Metagross is part Psychic as well, it's only going to take neutral damage from the fighting moves, so it's not terrible either. And then Meteor Mash is such a hard-hitting move, right? It does so much neutral damage to Machamp, and they shield that up, which is completely understandable. So at this point, I'm just going to try and get to another Meteor Mash. I'm not able to do so, and I'm probably going to just let this go through, because typically, my game plan is just to save 2 shields for Swampert. It's basically the same game plan as Ultra League, just put everything on Swampert, save 2 shields for it, and then hope that it pulls off. Luckily, they bait with Cross Chop, and it's not a Rock Slide. I'm able to Dragon Breath the Machamp down. They come back in with Dialga, so immediately going to go for the Dragon Claw here. Now, I can't switch into Swampert when shields are up, right? Because those Dragon Breaths would absolutely destroy it. But at this point, I switch it because they have only 1 shield. And my plan here is obviously I'm going to shield this because those Dragon Breaths are obviously doing a lot of damage. And even though Iron Head is resisted, I can't afford to take any additional damage. But they have double steel in the back. They have Metagross and Dialga. So I'm just going to go straight for the Hydro Cannon bait here. This should definitely, or pressure the shield. But unfortunately, they don't give up the shield. This is pretty tricky. So I'm just immediately going to go for the next Hydro Cannon. As you can see, Swampert generates energy so quickly that we get the shield right here. So I'm just going to shield this up, I think. Yeah, I'm just going to shield this up because I want to preserve some health on my Swampert to basically get rid of the Dialga as well. So just going to overfarm just a little bit and then throw the Hydro Cannon because I want to have that slight energy advantage while going up against Dialga because those Dragon Breaths would really start hurting. So at this point, I'm just going to go straight for the Earthquake here. But actually, I'm going to sack the Dragonite. So I'm just going to sack the Dragonite on the charge move. Luckily, they decide to throw. They probably thought I had a Dragon Claw ready, but they throw the Iron Head right there. Now Swampert has a pretty clear path to victory. So just going to go straight for the Earthquake, and that's going to seal the deal. Like you can see, Swampert towards endgame. You can almost count on the fact that every team is going to have at least 2 Pokemon that are weak to Swampert. That is almost guaranteed, right? Because of the number of steel types there are in the Master League meta, even in the Premier Cup. Metagross is probably one of the number 1 picks on PV Poke. And then there's Magnezone, etc. as well, and then Rhyperior. So basically, irrespective of if it's being Premier Cup or Master League, you're going to have at least 1 or 2 Pokemon that's weak to Swampert towards endgame. So this is a pretty terrible matchup. This is actually a tricky matchup. I want to showcase this as well, because if they lead with a Togekiss, my plan is to safe switch into Swampert because I can't switch into Metagross and give my hard counter away. But when they switch into something like Dragonite, it gets really tricky, right? Because Swampert can pretty much handle everything else. Even a Giratina Swampert can handle or at least do some sort of damage because Earthquake would hit for neutral. But Dragonite is very tricky because it resists the Hydro Cannons and those Dragon Breaths are really adding up. So it's very hard to win these kinds of matchups, right? So at this point, I'm just going to come in with Dragonite because it has such a poor matchup against Togekiss. And when you switch into your Swampert and you get hard countered, it's basically up to Metagross to take out 2 Pokemon. That's typically the game plan here. They come back in with Togekiss. I'm going to go into Metagross and then hope they have something in the back which is weak to Metagross. So unfortunately, it's a Mud Slap Rhyperior. So there's not a lot you can do in these situations. Like I said, they had the perfect hard counters, and Togekiss in the lead is definitely going to be a little challenging, right? But the key play, there are certain times where it's worked out, is basically you have to safe switch into Swampert and then even 2 shield it if you have to basically win switch advantage so that you can line up your Metagross against the Togekiss. And depending on the team comp, there's a very good chance that Dragonite can take care of whatever their third Pokemon is. So yeah, this is pretty much GG's here. Just this is one of the losses, probably one of the few losses that I had in these 2 or 3 sets put together, which is why I decided to give up the match there. But I think this is one of those situations where Hurricane would help, right? Because Hurricane would do some heavy neutral damage to Togekiss. In fact, this is the only matchup you'll need Hurricane for. For everything else, even against the steel types, both Dragonclaw and Hurricane are resisted, so you might as well just stick to Dragonclaw. So with Snorlax lead, this is a pretty neutral matchup for Dragonite because of how oppressive Dragon Breath is, and Dragonite has such a high attack stat, it's going to be able to win a lot of neutral matchups. As you can see, it's gotten the Snorlax down by about 50% already, and I'm not going to shield this because Body Slam, yes, it does hurt quite a bit, and Dragonite is fairly squishy, but they make a really nice switch into, I think, it's a Togekiss. This is beautiful. A lot of people like to just switch into Togekiss on the Dragonite, and that's exactly why you have Metagross, right? Metagross is one of the hardest Togekiss counters. You can completely commit to the Bullet Punch farm down, but I don't do it because they have a flamethrower, which is why they shielded right there. I want to pressure shield so that, if I don't want them to get off flamethrower, because if they do, then I'm gonna have to burn a shield. Sometimes they don't go for it, they bait, but it doesn't really matter because they can't get to another charge move anyways. And they come back in with Snorlax, and I can go straight for the Meteor Mash. Now that's the thing with Metagross. Meteor Mash is just such a heavy hitting move. Look at the damage that it does to most of the Pokemon. And they have a Metagross in the back. Perfect. Like I said, what I was talking about as well, right? Every team comp has at least one, if not two Pokemon in the back, which is weak to Swampert. You can almost always count on it. It's such a predictable, and it's the most predictable meta, right? Even though they've committed to the complete farm down, it is absolutely fine, because I can just come in with Dragonite and then soak up the charge move right here, so that they're basically energy dry, and they're basically just in Hydro Cannon range right now. It's pretty easy street for Swampert at this point, and just gonna shield this up, because if it's Earthquake, it would do quite a bit of damage. It's just a Meteor Mash. It doesn't really matter at this point, because they can't get to another. I can just get to 2 charge moves. So I'm just gonna build up a little extra energy and then go back to back here. So first Hydro Cannon coming through, it should get the shield, but they get off charge move here, which is probably just gonna be another Meteor Mash. No, it's actually an Earthquake. Okay. But it doesn't really matter. Earthquake from a Metagross doesn't have stab. And even though it does quite a bit of damage, it doesn't necessarily one-shot it. And Hydro Cannon should do the trick there. So, once again, Swampert, so reliable when it comes to closing out games. Metagross is the most favorable matchup for it, because those steel moves are resisted. Dialga is slightly more trickier, because those Dragon Breaths are doing some heavy neutral damage to Swampert. But Metagross is very, very favorable. So anyways, moving into the next battle, we have Dragonite into Swampert. This is one of the best leads. So now there's nothing the Swampert can do against a Dragonite. They are staying in this matchup, which is really surprising. I would have expected them to switch out. So I'm just going to throw the Dragon Claw here. This is one of the disadvantages of Swampert, which, like I was mentioning, is the Dragonite matchup is just, there's nothing really you can do. Even the Gyarados matchup is slightly tricky, but Dragonite is even more trickier, because Dragonite is maybe a little more tankier than Gyarados in Master League. But like you can see, I mean, there's nothing they can do. I can just completely commit to the Dragon Breath farm run. They go for Earthquake, which is definitely not the way to go, because that's double resisted, as opposed to Hydro Cannon, which is only single resisted. And again, Dragonite is just absolutely dumb. They come in with Dialga, which is absolutely fine. So typically what I do with Dialga is that I switch into, I like to line it up against my Metagross when shields are up, because Metagross resists the Dragon Breath damage, and when shields are down, I like to go into Swampert. So here they still have a shield, and they have a lot of loaded energy. So which is why I'm going to come in with Metagross, because we resist both Bullet Punch, beg your pardon, Dragon Breath, and any of the Dragon moves they're going to throw. But Thunder would do quite a bit of neutral damage there. So that's why, luckily, I shield that up. So I'm just going to immediately go for the Meteor Mash here. Even Meteor Mash bait. I mean, you can almost bait every single time, because of the Earthquake there. They are going to be inclined to shield most of the times. And another High and Head coming through. And I'm just going to go straight for the Earthquake, because they have no more shields. Again, Metagross is a pretty solid matchup against Dialga as well, right? Because Earthquake can pretty much one-shot it. And they have a Snorlax in the back, which is absolutely fine. Again, I'm just going to stay in this matchup. They are committing to the Lick farm down, but Metagross is way too much health to be farmed down by Lick, and Meteor Mash, when it lands, it just does massive damage, as you can see. And Swampert is pretty much going to be able to close it out again. It's pretty straightforward at this point, because I can just go for 2 Hydro Cannons, or maybe even a single Earthquake should do it. So let's see what I decide to do. Okay, I just go for the Hydro Cannon here. Probably could have gone for Earthquake and just seal the deal, but doesn't really matter, because, yeah, Body Slams are not going to be enough to take Swampert out, and it's going to be a GG's. So yeah, they decided to give up the match there. I think, yeah, even this team comp had Dialga, right? Something that maybe they didn't use it at the back, but again, another Pokemon that was weak to Swampert, basically. So anyways, this is the final battle, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and I'm really looking forward to trying out this team in Master League and Premier Cup in particular. I'll probably put out a video tomorrow featuring this team in Premier Cup, maybe tomorrow or maybe in the next day or two, definitely. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and also hit that subscribe button as well. And yeah, let's just finish off this game. This is actually a really exciting one, so I just want to conclude with a little bit of commentary on this one here. But yeah, again, another aspect of Metagross is that it has such a positive matchup against the Dragon types, like Dragonite in particular, right? There's not a lot Dragonite can do against a Metagross, because everything is going to be resisted, and Meteor Mash does so much damage to it. And they bring back Excadrill, which is absolutely fine. I mean, Pokemon like Excadrill basically have no chance against Swampert. So I'm just going to actually bring in Dragonite to basically soak the charge move here. And that's typically what I do. You know, I actually shield this up. Okay. That was a very interesting play, and they have a Metagross in the back. They have a Metagross and an Excadrill in the back. Double steal once again. Swampert is ready to go to town. Swampert with the one shield is more One shield is more than enough at this point for Swampert. It was too soon, which is why I didn't shield the Medium Ash. So just gonna overfarm a little bit and throw the Hydro Cannon here, trying to pressure their final shield. And let's see now. We get the shield. This is beautiful. But they get a charge move right here. I'm gonna shield the sub because I have to get this Earthquake off. And the switch timer is still not back up, so they can't really switch out of this matchup. Earthquake is pretty much gonna one-shot the Metagross, but it's still tricky. They still have an Excadrill in the back. So Excadrill coming through, but Swampert, because of its energy generation, gets off the final Hydro Cannon, does super effective damage against Excadrill, and it should pretty much seal the deal. So again, these are just a couple of sets of battles that I showcased, and like I said, hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you soon.